Hello. Thank you for your interest in the Conflict Resolution and Analysis Graduate Certificate. I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation to you for your inquiry. And if you have any further questions after viewing the video, our contact information is at the end of it. So you're welcome to reach out to any of us with any questions that you have. Again, this is a new certificate for the fall 2020 semester, and I hope that you will consider applying.
What is conflict resolution? I'm sure you can or have already put together your ideas. But these are just some points of reference. Learning people, you learn your industry wherever you're working, volunteering, or whatever you're doing. Now you learn people. Constructive change. You learn the skills that you need to lead constructive change and sustainable growth within your organization, to make the workplace, the environment, even the home, what have you, more productive. Just like one of the professors said, that business is personal because we're human. And a lot of times, you probably have heard that saying, don't take work home with you. Well, for many of us, work is at home, but don't take it with you, meaning don't take it personal. Don't wear your feelings on your sleeve. I'm sure you've all heard those things before, but at the end of the day, which is what's really cool about this, is that you can't help but to have some type of connection with your work and your work product. So when there's friction and disagreement, your mind can't help but have these thoughts. Okay, then how do we resolve this? How do we work it out so that it's a better environment? Professor Gillum, Professor Grossman, feel free to jump in whenever you want. I don't want to be a talking head because I don't know if any of you know, but I can talk.
Prof. Gillum, you want to, yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Even as you were speaking, Crystal, I can think of times when I personally have been involved in a situation that's unresolved, a conflict that's unresolved, and the amount of time that it eats up, the waste of your time personally, which leads to a lack of productivity in the workplace as you're working through what you could have said or what you should have said, or how am I going to get through this next day working with this person one cubicle over, or whatever it is, whether it's dealing with coworkers, dealing with the boss, dealing with clients, all of those things, when you hit those struggles or those conflicts, are inefficient, and it interrupts the workflow. So when you start looking at things through that conflict resolution lens, you start seeing it all over the place, right? And it's not always pretty getting there to get to the resolution, but it's always worth it, right? Like every mediation conference I've ever sat in, we know it's not going to be a pleasant experience. It's not pleasant to have to work through and tug and pull and get to a resolution, but it's much more efficient than allowing the conflict to just fester, which, again, is why I'm so excited about this program.
Yeah. It's interesting. I saw on the slide, Mrs. Johnson had said that being mindful of the fears and challenges and feelings of others. And what I teach in my classes, and what I'm sure Professor Gillum does as well, is that this idea of conflict resolution starts right here. Because if we are not aware of what's happening here, we're not going to be able to skillfully affect what's happening out there. So that's another piece of that, and it's kind of a juicy piece for those of you who are perhaps in education or in psychology or even in the healing arts. We through these processes of learning about this stuff, quite often learn a whole lot about ourselves and who we are in conflict. So it's just another little piece I thought I'd share.
Excuse me. I was going to look at, because one of the questions that someone raised when they registered, and it kind of goes along with some of the things we were saying, but what is the best way to resolve issues between students and teachers or students and administration when a student is stereotyped based on behavior or ethnicity? And even if we took it a step further, and if it wasn't students and teachers, and if it was just people in general.
Right.
And I know that the answer that we summed up was basically, there is no easy answer or easy way, but it's a process to get there, just like it was a process to get to what occurred in the first place or what has occurred.
Right.
So.
Right. It's yeah, I always, because my orientation was from Valencia College and the Peace and Justice Institute, I always fall back on the principles for how we treat each other as my foundation for process. And then I take it from there. So there's, when I was looking at those questions, and I was really actually seeing the pain in them, and the pain that people go through in the workplace as a result of discrimination and really not having perhaps a supported culture or a common language to have those kinds of conversations. And so I suppose the message that I would want people to know is that there is hope. I too have been in a position many years ago before starting this path of just not knowing what to do in these situations, but I've seen some breathtakingly beautiful strides made in the midst of heartbreaking content and heartbreaking conversations. So it can be done. It just takes the know-how and the proper tools and a deep sense of humility and patience. So that's my piece on that.
Well said. Why conflict resolution matters? Well, I'm sure we could take a poll of the individuals in the room that have had conflict, and everyone would spill over with absolutely. This certificate will set you apart for the unknown. You know, we walk into businesses, whether it's our own business where we open our own business, or working for or working with others, and you don't know what's coming. You don't know what hurdles you will have, or if there's a downsize or anything like that. So it sets you apart and gives you that preparation and equipment, if you will, of how to handle it, because it's inevitable. Unless you're working all by yourself, and not communicating with anyone ever, then it's a need. So this is fulfilling a need. And the uniqueness is being able to recognize the conflict and say, okay, not going to be passive, but be proactive to handle it, and navigate yourself and others through it. So you don't know what end of that spectrum you'll be on, but this will at least give you what you need in order to recognize it, get through it, resolve it.
You know, Mrs. Johnson, I just saw something in the comments that I felt on my heart to address, and it's very topical, and you know, I think it's so important during this time of national heartache to not enter this virtual environment and bypass our very real problems with discrimination and bias in our country and in our classrooms. So there's a student who has posted in the chat some issues in the classroom that she's seeing bias against students of color. And I did want to let it be known that we are having conversations with Valencia College Peace and Justice Institute about doing some workshops around race and bias with them. So I didn't want to let that go unrecognized, because she brings up a very important point, and one that we need to continue talking about and being aware of, especially me as a white woman of privilege. So I just wanted to recognize that. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but when I see something like that, I think it's super important.
I appreciate it. Another question that a student had was, the student expects to graduate and they will no longer be considered a graduate student. And I just want to rehash that in case that person has joined us, that you can take the courses as long as you would be active, so that you would likely need to reapply, because if you're graduating in the summer with a graduate degree, you would have to be active in order to take the class. Whether you commit to the certificate, you can still take the class. And without the commitment of declaring the certificate, if you would like to. And again, the class is in the fall semester. Okay. I think my computer is acting goofy. I'm sorry. So what next? So you apply by July 1st. That is the deadline for the College of Graduate Studies, and submitting your transcript if you're not a current UCF student or prior UCF student and don't have any additional records to provide. So it's basically to let UCF know what records you have on your history. There is an application fee. I put a little star because some of you might be applicable or meet the requirement to have that fee waived. That's a matter of you checking out the graduate website, and the website is at the bottom, I believe. If not, I can share it with you all. But the orientation is optional. And then the next thing is registering for PLA 6247. We would love to have you. Reach out if you have any additional questions or things that you wanted to discuss with any of us, all of us. You're welcome to do that. You will find our contact information at the end of the page. So another popular question is the cost. So right now, that is the cost for a 3-credit-hour graduate course. You can find more information on the student accounts website, as well as their email and phone. And for those of you that are working on a graduate program, whether it's a master's or a doctorate or anything of that nature, you're probably already familiar with the cost if you're a UCF student or wherever you're coming from. And there are opportunities for the students to have assistantships and fellowships and things like that. With the graduate certificate, it's a little bit different. So I just want you to be aware of where to find that information. Now, none of us handle this part. We're not experts. We will tell you where to go. We will analyze and provide you with the information. So whenever we don't know something, we'll definitely let you know that and find it out for you. Definitely researchers. So this is how you can reach me and my contact information, and Professor Gillum and her contact information, and Professor Grossman and her contact information. So at this point, we can open the floor to you all. I can also go back to the additional questions that were raised in the registration as well. or if there's more questions in the chat coming through.
Let me see. I think you've answered quite a few. Cost. Jordan just sent out the website to review application waivers.
Someone just asked if the cost was the same for out-of-state tuition.
Ah,
Excellent question.
yes.
And I don't believe so.
No, the
But
cost for
there we
out-of-state
go, Ms.
students
Grushka.
is different. I apologize. I will put the student account website in the chat as well for you to review.
Thank you.
Oh, will this course be available after the fall semester?
So the classes will continue. We're not going anywhere. In the spring, that would be the next cycle after that. Let me go back up so that the page is not empty there. So we will have another class in the spring. And if you would give me a moment, I can tell you the name of it. I don't know if you wanted to know the name of it or not. But every semester, you will have the ability to take classes within the certificate as well. You know, just remember, keep in mind that the electives are out there as well. You have electives from communication, you have electives from public administration, you have one of our electives as well within the certificate. So the options are out there. And because of the sequence of the classes, we study a year, but like Professor Grossman said, don't hold us to it, but there is a pathway to completing. And that information is on the Department of Legal Studies website, because you can't obviously take the practicum your first, semester. You have to meet the benchmarks for it. So, but yes, you will have the opportunity to take classes and continue on after the fall. It's just that our admission cycle is every fall. So if you wanted to pursue this certificate and you're not ready for July 1, then it would be July 1 of next year. If you wanted to take a class, like I said, you can take the graduate course in the fall without actually going the route of declaring the certificate. That's fine. You just have to be in graduate standing. So like I said, whether applying as a graduate non-degree seeker or what have you.
It looks like we're getting some questions that we've already answered. Is this PowerPoint going to be made available for everyone, or?
It is being recorded, so
okay.
Ms. Grushka can share the file with us and we can use it. Yep.
Okay.
And post it or send it out.
There, I see one of the questions about the practicum, and that's something that we've been talking about with everything happening in this practicum, the need really for safety for it to be moved online. The question was, hey, if we're not in Orlando, can we do the practicum? And so, Mrs. Johnson, I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. Yes.
Yes. We welcome you from wherever you are. Okay, another question was, is it possible to enroll and add on the certificate after I graduate? And yes, you can. Again, you would just have to be in that graduate standing for the fall semester in order to take the class. And unlike other programs, you can complete the graduate certificate all by itself if you wanted to do that. Okay. And the certificate is awarded by the University of Central Florida. At the end, you have to make sure you're approved. So there's a graduate plan of study, and basically getting the graduate certificate certified. There is still a ceremony. Hopefully by that point, everything will be up and running, but there will be a ceremony that you could attend for the graduate certificate. So.
See.
And I don't know if the students had a way to unmute themselves, but if anyone wanted to jump on and audibly say something, that's fine. Don't be scared, even if you don't want to turn your video on.
Jordan, are they unable to mute themselves? Are they able to?
They are able to mute.
Okay.
And themselves.
Okay. Don't be scared.
I guess another question I saw. Oh, nope, go ahead.
Hi.
You first.
I am not sure if this question was asked before. I asked it in the chat about the length of time for the course of study and how many credits in all do you need to complete it?
So it's 15 credit hours. Thank you very much for your question, ma'am. It's 15 credit hours. And as far as length of time, it could depend on a variety of factors. One of them being how often you plan to take classes, how many classes you were planning to take each semester. So our comfort level is about a year, but it could take a little bit more. So we've asked that you keep that in mind, but don't see it as like something that is written in stone. You have your required, go ahead.
And how long, like what's the maximum length of time that you would allow?
Well, the time that it takes you to, okay, so unless Professor Grossman has a better way of answering, you can chime in. I was just trying to give like a scenario, but go ahead.
Ms. Yvonne, are you asking, like, if you don't get this completed in 2 years, you're going to be kicked out, kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's what I was just clarifying.
Okay.
Your deadline.
So basically, and Ms. Grushka can chime in as well if she has additional items to add. She's on with us to assist as well. But if you do not enroll for, I believe it's 2 consecutive semesters, then you would have to reactivate your status. So if you start off in the fall and you take some time off, let's say you take the spring semester off and you take, let's say, the following fall off, then you would have to reapply when you're ready to start because you wouldn't be considered active. Ms. Grushka, you can chime in, add anything you want.
Yeah, so you are allowed 2 consecutive semesters of non-enrollment before you would be discontinued and need to reapply. So you can enroll in fall and then you can take spring and summer off, but if you don't re-enroll for the following fall, you would be discontinued and would need to re-enroll. Also, your courses at the university at the graduate level are good for 7 years to be applied to your program of study. So I don't know if that was also the maximum time. You are allowed 7 years before your courses are no longer eligible towards the completion of your program.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question that someone had was, will these courses count toward any credit? So they count towards a certificate. That's an excellent question in terms of counting to another program. So I guess the best way to answer that would be if your program has electives or room for electives, then our classes could be considered electives. And you're welcome to, you should anyway, speak with your program advisor if you are pursuing a graduate degree presently.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one I had, Professor Grossman, you pretty much answered that one at the beginning. It was something related to workplace discrepancies and conflicts and correcting someone getting their, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. You know,
That
I
was
could
another
unpack
question.
that. You know, if the person who wrote that in would like to unpack that with me, it was actually a really good fact pattern, and there were things in there that I would love to talk with them about, but I really think that what I've seen in the workshops that I do, and it's kind of funny, they're just like, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do to just make this go away. And it doesn't work that way. These are people, these are not problems to just allay and get rid of. So conflict resolution, as Dr. Gillum had said, yeah, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, and it takes a great deal of humility in looking at yourself and where you are in the equation of the conflict, because it's never one-sided. You know, even if it's like maybe 10-90, there's always some contribution on your part as well. So that's this path. Yeah.
Very true. Did anyone else have something they wanted to audibly bring up? Or anything else in the chat? Quiet as kept, huh?
It can be weird, you know, seeing your face on the little screen and offering up your question. But that's okay.
I think one thing I'll do, I'll pause my screen share and bring up the site, because I know this can go about an hour, but it really depends on the audience and the students and what they want. So I will pause my share for just a moment.
It does bring up the kind of interesting topic of all of us moving to remote work environments now, and how there's a different sort of angle to navigating conflict in a remote world, which has already been growing anyway with the increase in popularity of social media platforms and Twitter as a method of communication. And so it is interesting. We're moving our, in the legal system, we're moving our mediations online. Obviously, most major corporations have moved all of their meetings, their conferences, et cetera, online. And so it is an interesting thing, because part of the process of conflict resolution is having the parties present and having them engaging in working through their conflict. And when you're appearing remotely or electronically, it's easy to lose that presence.
What's been your, I bet people might be interested in what your experience of that has been, because I know that you've been doing quite a few Zoom mediations. How's that been?
It's been interesting because unlike conflict resolution in general, in the mediation world, the parties are looking at a resolution steamrolling towards them, whether they like it or not, as opposed to general conflict resolution, where, you know, conflict can remain unresolved for a very long period of time. So in the court system, we have a bit more urgency, in the sense that if you don't decide this, the judge or the jury is going to decide it for you. So we still have that big stick in the legal world of, you know, this is getting resolved one way or the other, which we don't have you know, in the employment world or in other sectors. So we are still finding it to be effective, but just a lot, I feel like the participants are more distracted. Maybe they're not necessarily so plugged in. I'm constantly kind of trying to pull them back into focusing on why we're here and what we're doing. And, you know, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Thank you for that.
Well, I brought up the curriculum layout for the certificate program. Hopefully everyone gets their questions answered before they decide to leave the room today. And like I said, if you have additional questions, you can reach out to us. But the required courses in the order that they're listed there, you have your conflict resolution theory, which is this coming fall semester, understanding human behavior and conflict in the spring, with conflict resolution theory being the requirement. Now, the practicum is down there at the end, which is intentional because it's in the final semester. And as you see here, your list of elective courses to choose from. So you can persist and continue without taking the gap.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep in mind that you need a B- at least. That's the minimum for the courses. And you need an overall 3.0 GPA to graduate, even if this is your only program that you're working towards. And as far as the course descriptions, those are also on the department's website. This is where it's housed. So the flyer for it, this is the website for the certificate itself on our page. The course descriptions are here for each of those classes. And again, you can complete it from wherever you are. You can apply right there on our page. Well, we hope you will consider joining us, and hopefully this has,
Oh, that was just another thanks.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Hopefully that's turned the maybe I'll do this into an absolutely I will do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love to have you with us.
Well, if there isn't anything else, I see some folks leaving the room. We can close out. Excuse me. And once again, I just thank you for taking the time to join us today and be a part of this and raise your questions and all of that. And if any other questions come up, don't hesitate to reach out to us.